Jane knelt on the mat, her hands hesitating over the towel in her lap. Liam's voice broke the hush, low but clear. "Need these off?" She looked up at him, met his eyes. They weren't demanding, just tired and honest. Still the question, lodged like a thorn. Her voice came quieter than she meant. "I can call a male aide, or ... or someone else." He shook his head slowly, jaw tight from effort. "Not strangers, not today, please." The word softened her spine. She breathed once, twice. She could do this, but only so far. She reached carefully for the waistband. "All right? Lift just a little." Liam gripped the grab bar with one hand and braced his other lightly on her shoulder. His skin was warm, trembling slightly with the strain. Jane slid the fabric downward, inch by inch, keeping her eyes focused on neutral space. When the cloth pulled at his ankles, she helped remove it fully, careful, quick. She draped a clean towel over his lap immediately, shielding skin and preserving silence. She didn't look up. "There," she said softly. "Covered." "Thank you," he murmured. And he meant it, not with shame or pride, just deep fatigue. And relief. Jane turned on the spray and let the warm water flow over his shoulders, rinsing away days of sweat and hospital scent. The hiss of the shower filled the room, soothing and steady. She picked up a soft sponge and poured a measure of soap. "May I?" she asked. Liam gave a small nod. She began at his shoulders, working in gentle circles. The steam curled between them, clouding the mirror. She traced around bruises and over muscles, slow, methodical. Her hands moved on instinct more than thought. This wasn't about closeness, not yet. This was care. "You draw?" he said suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "Sketches. I saw them on the desk." Jane let out a breath. "Yeah, since I was little." He tilted his head slightly. "You see things differently than most people? Details, edges?" She smiled faintly, surprised by the observation. "You noticed that after waking from a coma, the room's bland. Your lines weren't." A pause stretched between them. She rinsed his chest, avoiding the long scar beneath his ribs. When she reached the edge of the towel, she stopped. "Liam," she said gently, placing the sponge back in the basin. "4 below? Think I should step out and call someone." He looked at her, no offense in his eyes. "It's just a trace of sadness. Maybe something else." "Okay," he said, after a long moment. "Thank you for helping me this far." She nodded. "I'll be right back." As she stood, he caught her wrist. Not hard, not holding her, just touching. His fingers trembled from the effort, but his eyes were clear. "Jane," she turned to him. "It's strange, but I trust you more than anyone else right now." A breath. "That doesn't mean I understand this, but I don't feel afraid when you're here." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said that to her before. Not like that. "Then I'll keep showing up," she said, and she meant it. She stepped into the hall, signaled for the nurse, and waited just outside the bathroom door, heart still pounding. Her hand smelled of soap and water. Something about the moment pressed deep into her chest. Not romance, not yet. But trust offered tentatively from a man clawing his way back to life. When the nurse arrived and took over, Jane returned to the bedroom. She stripped the bed, changed the linens, opened the window wide. Fresh air drifted in, cool and laced with sea salt by the time Liam was wheeled back to bed. Clean and wrapped in a loose shirt, his skin had regained some of its natural color. He looked at her as she tucked the blanket in. "Next time I'll walk." "Next time," she agreed. He closed his eyes, weariness reclaiming him. Jane sat back in the armchair and opened her sketchbook, pencil already dancing with the curve of his collarbone, the slight crook in his nose, the softened edge of defiance in his brow. He was a stranger still, but one with a voice now, the flicker of fire returning to his eyes. The sketchbook sat open on Jane's lap, lines still forming, soft, uncertain, but real. She caught the way Liam's brow had relaxed now that sleep was reclaiming him. a gentle rise and fall of his chest. The bruises had faded slightly, but the scar remained like a signature across skin, proof of survival, something unfinished. A knock broke the quiet dot. Gloria. She stepped in without waiting for a reply, holding a silver tray with 2 mugs. Her eyes scanned the room like a manager inspecting a showroom. "Coffee," she said, placing the tray on the side table. "Thought you could use some." Jane murmured thanks, but didn't reach for it. Gloria's eyes landed on Liam, asleep in the fresh bed, newly bathed and dressed in a soft cotton shirt. She studied his face, then turned her gaze sharply to Jane. "He's awake. Already engaging," she said in a low voice. "That moves up our timeline." "Our timeline." "Board review in 6 weeks," Gloria said crisply. "You need to demonstrate stability as wife, caretaker, and future partner." Jane stiffened. "He's barely conscious. Doesn't even remember how he got here. That won't matter if they smell weakness." Gloria stepped closer, lowering her voice further. "Liam's votes on the board are the fulcrum. If he's seen as indecisive, or if he questions the marriage because it was arranged." "While he was in a coma," Jane cut in. "'Cause it kept him alive," Gloria hissed. "It was a ghost with a heartbeat. Do you think anyone else would have pulled him out of that hospital and brought him home?" Jane stood now, the sketchbook slipping from her lap to the chair. "I didn't marry him for power, Gloria. I did it because my mother is dying and I was offered a trade. I'm not trying to win favors. I'm trying to survive." Gloria's jaw twitched. She reached for her coffee but didn't sip. "Survive. Yes. But you need to think beyond survival now. Think legacy. Think leverage. The board will demand to see more than a bedside marriage certificate." Jane's heart pounded. "Are you saying I have to manipulate him?" "I'm saying," Gloria replied, "that the Andre family does not tolerate weakness. If Liam starts asking too many questions, you better have good answers." Jane's voice dropped. "He already is." A beat of silence stretched between them. Then Gloria turned, her tone falsely casual. "The clinic called. They're available for an initial consultation next week. I penciled you in. We'll have to go alone, of course." "Cancel it," Jane said flatly. Gloria paused, hand on the doorframe. "That would be unwise. He just woke up, Gloria. Not building a child from lies." Gloria gave a short laugh, a sharp sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Romance isn't the point, Jane. Legacy is." She left without another. Word. The door clicked shut. Jane stood in the middle of the room, the walls closing in like a stage set with no escape hatch. She picked up her sketchbook and traced a faint line over Liam's shoulder sketch, then stopped. Her hand was trembling. Behind her, Liam stirred just enough for a low groan to escape his throat. Jane turned at once. He didn't open his eyes, but his brow furrowed. She stepped close and brushed a hand over his hair. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe." His lips parted as if to speak, then stilled again. Sleep reclaimed him fully. Jane sat back down. She didn't know if she belonged here. Not truly. But for now, she was the only person in this house speaking to Liam without a script, and maybe that was something worth protecting. Later that evening, a message buzzed on Jane's phone. "Mercy General, your mother is lucid. Asked for you by name." Jane's fingers closed tight around the phone. Maybe tomorrow. She thought she would tell Liam the whole truth. And maybe, just maybe, he would listen. The message from Mercy. General pulsed on Jane's phone like a heartbeat. "Your mother is lucid. Asked for you by name." She sat with it a moment, feeling its weight settle in her chest. The room was dim now, dusk casting silver-blue shadows across the tiles. Liam breathed steadily in the bed. His face, newly washed, looked almost peaceful-like. Someone halfway between sleep and decision. Jane glanced at the clock. Visiting hours still open, if barely. She scribbled a quick note on the pad by the bedside. "Had to go see my mom. Back by morning. Rest." She tucked it beneath the water glass. "Mercy General, the oncology wing was quieter at night." World moved slower, in these halls nurses padded softly, machines hummed, and lives hung by a breath. Jane found her mother awake, propped up on pillows, thin and pale, but her eyes alert. "There's my girl," Olivia whispered, her voice like paper. Jane smiled, swallowing the lump in her throat. She sat and took her mother's hand. "You called for me?" Olivia studied her daughter's face. "You've been crying." Jane blinked, then chuckled softly. "Not recently. I can tell." Her mother's hand, cool and dry, brushed a stray hair from Jane's cheek. "You wear your heart just like your father. All shield, no helmet." They sat for a moment in comfortable silence. Then Olivia looked sharply at her. "You married, didn't you?" Jane froze. "'Twas in the papers," Olivia added, smiling faintly. "The Andre family doesn't sneeze without someone catching wind." Jane looked away. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Explain it to me." So Jane told her. The proposal, the contract, the coma, the name on a paper, the truth quiet, heavy ENPOLISE. When she finished, her mother exhaled a long breath. "Did you love him?" Olivia asked. "I didn't even know him," Jane whispered. And now Jane closed her eyes. "He's awake, confused, angry, and I don't blame him." "But do you feel anything?" Jane hesitated. The image of Liam's eyes, half-lidded, searching her face, his hand gripping hers in the dark. The way his voice cracked when he asked, "Who are you?" "Yes," she said finally, "but I don't know what it means yet." Olivia nodded. "Then take care of that meaning. Don't let them twist it into leverage. What if it's too late?" Jane murmured. Her mother squeezed her hand weakly. "It's never too late for the truth, Jane. But Liz especially one's soaked in. Power have long roots. You'll have to dig." Jane stayed until Olivia drifted back to sleep. She watched her mother breathe, memorized the quiet rise and fall. Before leaving, she whispered, "I'm trying. For you, for him, for me." Back at the coastal house, dawn was lifting when she stepped through the door. The hallway smelled of sea, air, and eucalyptus. In the bedroom, Liam was awake, sitting up with effort, a tray of untouched food on the rolling table. "Did you run away?" he asked dryly. Jane startled, then smiled. "It's just a quick escape. My mom, she had a clear moment." He studied her eyes, unreadable. "And did you tell her you married a stranger in exchange for a trust fund?" Jane sighed. "I told her the truth. Will you do the same for me now?" The question hung like salt in the air. Jane stepped forward, pulled the note from beneath the water glass, and crumpled it. "Yes," she said. "Ask what you want. I'll answer everything." Liam leaned back slowly against the pillows. Expression: cautious but curious. "Start with why you said yes." Jane looked him straight in the eyes. "'Cause I was drowning, and your family offered a lifeline. And now I'm trying to figure out whether I grabbed a Torah chain, a beat. Then." Liam nodded once. "Fair enough." Liam reached for the water glass with a steadying hand. Jane moved to help, but he waved her off. "I need to do things myself," he said, not unkindly, "even if it takes all day." He drank slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "Tell me what I was to them," he said, "before the crash. Not the brochures, not the press releases, the truth." Jane pulled the armchair closer and sat. The room was quiet again, soft wind brushing the curtains. She met his gaze. "You were leverage," she said. "A symbol of continuity. Charismatic, impulsive, but threatening in the way power feels when it isn't predictable. Your shares, your birthright. They needed you to be manageable." He nodded slowly, digesting. "They tried to tether you through marriage, preferably one that served their legacy. But you didn't choose one, so they chose for you." "Me? Why you?" His voice held no accusation, now just honest curiosity. Jane hesitated. "'Cause I wasn't threatening. 'Cause I was broke. Because my mother is your cousin's cousin, and that made it legal enough." 'Cause they knew I wouldn't say no, not with my mom in that hospital bed. And you thought I wouldn't wake up? No, she said. I hoped you would. I prayed for it, but I also planned for the worst. Liam's eyes grew distant. You plan to spend your life married to a ghost? No, Jane said. Softly, I plan to help a dying woman breathe without drowning in bills. And if it meant sleeping beside a stranger in silence for the rest of my life, I would have done it. Silence fell again. The ocean roared in the distance, a low and constant reminder. He leaned back, closed his eyes. That's the first honest thing anyone said to me since I woke up. After a moment, he opened them again. What do you want now, Jane? She blinked. What? You've been playing their game. Now the board's nervous. I can feel it. He touched the band on his finger. If I say this marriage was coercion, it all collapses. If I say it stands, they lose control. So I'll ask again, what do you want? Jane stood slowly, walked to the window. The sea shimmered under the morning sun, vast and unknowable. I want my mother to live, she said. I want to paint. Again, without guilt eating through the canvas. I want to be free of people like Whitaker, Gloria, and that damn advisory board. Then she turned and faced him. But I also want to be able to look at myself and not flinch. Liam watched her. A long moment. His expression shifted, less guarded now, more like someone studying a map with no clear route. Then let's rewrite the rules, he said. She tilted her head. What rules? Ours. Later that afternoon, as the sun leaned westward, Whitaker called Jane, put him on speaker. We'll need a new photograph for the quarterly bulletin, he said briskly. The board is requesting a formal appearance proof of recovery, reassurance of stability, and, ideally, unity between Mr. Andre and his wife. Liam glanced at Jane and then answered, his voice cool and sharp. You can tell the board will appear when I say we're ready, not before. And Jane is not a puppet for their optics. It's just not there to smile on cue. There was a pause on the line. Then, a quiet, understood, sir. When the call ended, Jane looked at him, stunned. You didn't have to do that, he shrugged. I did, because you were honest with me. Now I return the favor. She swallowed, her throat tight, for the first time since all this began. The floor beneath her didn't feel like it would crack open at any second. Thank you, she whispered. Liam offered the ghost of a smile. Don't thank me yet. The real war's just beginning. That evening, after dinner trays were cleared and the nurse had dimmed the lights for the night, Jane sat curled on the small couch with her sketchbook balanced on her knees. Liam was quiet, but his eyes tracked her hand as charcoal whispered across the page. You always draw in silence, he asked, voice soft. Usually, she said without looking up. But tonight feels full of noise I can't name. Liam shifted on the bed, careful of the four. Draw it anyway. Maybe it'll name itself. She glanced at him. What about you? Do you remember anything else? He paused, considering flashes. Metal, light, someone yelling, then nothing, like falling asleep underwater. He looked at the ceiling. Then you. Jane set the charcoal down. It's the first face you saw. I'm sorry if that made things worse. His gaze flicked to her. Not worse, just unexpected. They fell into silence again. The monitors beeped softly. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. Then Liam spoke again. Did they really expect you to give them a child while I was unconscious? Jane hesitated. Gloria mentioned it. The board saw it as inshore. He let out a dry laugh, low and bitter. That's monstrous. Jane didn't argue. She just said, I told them no. That wasn't the deal I made. Not even for my mother. His eyes searched hers. That matters. She stood, walked to his bedside, and reached for the cloth to dampen his forehead. I told you I didn't trick you. But I also won't pretend this isn't complicated. I don't need. Simple, he murmured. I need honest. She nodded, wiping sweat from his brow with care, as she turned to put the cloth away. Liam's hand brushed hers light but deliberate. She looked down. His fingers remained against hers, barely touching. "Jane," he said quietly, "if we're going to do this, stay married. Even for a while I need a partner, not a caretaker." She met his gaze. There was no demand in it. Just something like vulnerability hidden beneath worn pride. "I'm not sure I know how," she admitted. "Neither." "Do I?" he said. "But maybe that's where we start." The next morning, Whitaker sent flowers. Jane binned them without reading the card. Later that day, as Liam was guided by a physical therapist through careful stretches, Jane sat nearby, sketching his posture, the angle of his hands. When he groaned through a difficult rep, he asked, "How bad do I look?" Jane smiled. "It's like someone crawling out of a war, but still here." He held her gaze, breathless but amused. "It's the nicest thing anyone's said to me in months." That night, she finally allowed herself to hang one small painting on the bedroom wall. It was an ocean at twilight gray-green, endless, quiet. Liam studied it from bed. "That yours?" "Yes," he nodded. "Then don't take it down, not even if Gloria storms in." Jane smiled faintly. "You might regret saying that when she actually does." "I'll survive," he said, then added more quietly, "I already did." She didn't reply. Instead, she moved to turn off the lamp. But before she could, Liam's voice stopped her. "Will you stay a while?" She hesitated only a moment, then nodded and sat on the edge of the bed, near but not close. His eyes were already drifting shut. But just before sleep took him, he murmured, "Don't give up on us, even if we don't know what us means yet." And Jane, staring at the soft lines of his profile, whispered back, "I won't." Then the room fell into the kind of silence that wasn't empty but full of fragile, waiting hope. Thresholds by the end of the week, Liam could sit unassisted and walk a few paces with a cane. Strength returned in short, stubborn bursts each victory laced with grimaces and sweat. Jane remained nearby, hovering but never smothering. Learned when to help and when to let silence carry the weight. They had not spoken again about the marriage, nor about what came next. One gray morning, Dr. Marin reviewed Liam's latest scans with a slight, hopeful smile. "Neuro recoveries, ahead of curve. Your cognition, memory intact, that's rare." "That's good. Does that mean I can go outside?" Liam asked. Dr. Marin nodded. "Jane joins, and if you avoid overexertion." Liam glanced at her then, a wordless request behind his tired smirk. The beach path behind the estate wound through low pines and saltgrass. Jane pushed the lightweight wheelchair slowly, her scarf tucked tight against the wind. Liam, wrapped in a thick hoodie, kept his gaze fixed on the sea. For a long while they said nothing. Then he spoke. "I still don't know why they needed me married." Jane's fingers tightened on the handles. "Your shares. A clause in the Andre family trust said they'd shift to a rival block if you turned 30 unmarried." The board panicked. They didn't want to lose control. He snorted. "Figures, they picked me because of bloodline, a distant tie, and because I had ... no reason to say no." Liam looked up at her. "Except dignity." Jane blinked. Mom was dying. I'd spent every cent. Hospitals don't take dignity as payment." He turned back to the waves. "And now, she exhaled. "She's stable in a good ward. I visit when I can. And you're alive. And we're married," he said. "Legally, publicly." Strangely, Jane smiled faintly. "We could be the start of a terrible novel." He chuckled, then winced. "Don't make me laugh. It hurts." Noted. Reached the overlook, where the bench faced open sea. Jane set the brakes and joined him on the stone ledge. Seagulls wheeled above the water, and a faint spray kissed the air. Liam's hand rested on the blanket across his lap. Without thinking, Jane's fingers brushed his light as driftwood. "I never wanted a husband," she said softly. "He didn't pull away. I never planned to be a husband, let alone wake up to a stranger calling herself my wife." She glanced at him, wary. But you're not a stranger anymore, he added. They sat like that, silence breathing between them, neither full of love, nor resentment, but something beginning. Later that afternoon. In the study, Jane entered to find Gloria and Whitaker standing by the fireplace. Portfolios open, tension humming. Ah, the bride, Gloria said coolly. Jane ignored her and looked. To Whitaker, he's awake. He's improving. Whitaker's brows arched. And is he ... compliant? Jane narrowed her eyes. He's not a child. He's a shareholder, Gloria cut in. And your continued access to our resources depends on maintaining the appearance of unity. Jane stepped forward. I won't lie to him. Then. Don't, Whitaker said smoothly. Don't let him walk into a board meeting unprepared. Not until he remembers who to trust. He trusts me, Jane said, quieter. For now, Gloria said. Don't waste it. That night, Jane brought soup into the bedroom. Liam had showered alone, slow but steady, and wore one of his own soft gray sweaters now. He sat propped against pillows, sketchbook in his lap, her old one. I tried, he said, holding up a lopsided wave she'd begun days earlier. It's harder than it looks, she grinned. You'll improve. Maybe, he studied her. I've been thinking, always dangerous. He rolled his eyes. His marriagette started wrong. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Jane froze, spoon halfway to his bowl. What do you mean? Let's try honesty. Full honesty. About everything. The accident, the board, us. You're still recovering. So I want to recover with the truth. His voice was quiet but sure. Start tomorrow. Jane exhaled. Slowly. Okay. He smiled, wearier now. And if we make it through that, then what? We'll decide whether we stay married because of the board or because of each other. The words fell like a pebble into still water ripples she couldn't yet measure. But she nodded. Double quotes tomorrow. Then. Paper Truth's morning sun spilled through gauzy curtains. Jane stood at the dresser, brushing her hair with slow strokes. Behind her, Liam shifted in the bed, watching her through half-lidded eyes. You always get up this early, he murmured. Lee. Only when I can't sleep, she replied, setting the brush down. He sat upright, wincing slightly but refusing help. You said today we'd talk. She nodded, turning toward him. Her palms were damp. Do you want to start with the accident or the marriage? Let's begin with the stranger part, he said. How I ended up with a ring on my finger. Jane pulled the armchair closer to the bed and sat down. You were in a crash, a sharp curve at night. No alcohol, no drugs. It's just rain and a guardrail you didn't see. You were in a coma when I got the call, actually, when Whitaker found me. Why you? He asked again, this time softer. Because I'm a Sinclair by blood. My mom, Olivia Sinclair. Caldwell is Eleanor Andre's cousin. That made me ... useful. Close enough to be legitimate, distant enough not to cause scandal, and poor enough to say yes. He didn't say it cruelly, just plainly. Jane met his eyes. Yes, I had nothing but debt and a mother on oxygen. I didn't even get the full story at first. Just vague promises of help, but I knew it was a bargain. Liam leaned back, processing. The board feared your shares would default to a rival block if you hit 30 unmarried and incapacitated. Your accident spooked them. They fast-tracked up legal proxy marriage with someone of clean reputation and matching blood. That was me. He looked at his left hand, the silver band catching light. And you agreed to marry a man in a coma for money? No, she said, for survival. For my mother and for you, though I didn't know you. They said you'd be moved to state care without private advocacy. That your father's faction might challenge your support. So I'm a corporate hostage, basically. And I'm the decoy wife who signed the ransom note. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. A gull cried faintly outside, the sea restless below. How long was I unconscious after the wedding? 3 weeks? And how long have I been awake? Dais's eyes narrowed. Then we've been married 23 days. I don't remember the first 21. Jane gave a dry laugh. Trust me, they were quiet. You snored. I talked. He rubbed his temple. What happens now? Jane folded her hands. I don't know. That's what today is for. Later that afternoon, Liam's study. He sat in a soft leather chair, Kane resting beside him. Jane stood by the window, scanning the coast while Whitaker unpacked papers across the table. These are the marriage contracts, Whitaker said. As agreed, the terms are binding under the Andre Sinclair clause. The shares held in joint trust remain safe unless a divorce is filed or a breach of confidentiality occurs. Liam flipped through the documents, and if I annul, contested, Whitaker said smoothly. Given your unconscious state? The board could challenge your competence at the time and reinstate the agreement under emergency protocol. So either I stay married or the board paints me incompetent. That would be unfortunate optics. Yes. Jane remained silent. She watched Liam trace his finger across his own signature looped and clean, forged during his coma. This is insane, Liam muttered. It's business, Whitaker replied. Jane stepped forward. No, it's theft of choice. We were both cornered. Liam glanced at her, surprised by the anger in her tone. Whitaker adjusted his tie. There's also the matter of public image. Your recovery is being carefully managed. A devoted wife by your side, a legacy marriage, these details matter to shareholders. Of course they do, Liam said flatly. Tell them I'll pose for their fairy tale, but only if Jane stays. Jane blinked. What? If I'm staying in this, it's by my terms now. And my first term is that we deal with this together. No more secrets, no more board orders. Whitaker paused, then nodded. I'll inform the legal team. He left them alone. That evening, in the garden, Liam sat on the stone bench, wrapped in a shawl. Jane watered a cluster of white hydrangeas nearby. Why did you tell him to keep me? She asked. He smiled faintly. Because you're the only part of this whole mess that wasn't fake. You didn't lie to me when you could have. You stayed when it was hard. Jane knelt beside the flower bed. It still is, I know. His voice softened. But I'd like to get to know my wife, even if we started at the wrong end. She looked up, and if it doesn't work, then we part like adults. No scandal, no blame. He paused. But for now, we stay. Jane sat beside him, silent. The wind carried salt and promise. Glass rooms and quiet truths, hospital rooms smelled of lavender wipes and filtered air. Machines pulsed softly. Sunlight filtered through the tinted windows, casting a pale glow across Olivia Caldwell's bed. Her face was thinner than Jane. Remember, cheekbones sharper, skin translucent as rice paper, but her eyes, when they opened, still held their quiet spark. Mom, Jane whispered, stepping in. Olivia turned her head slowly. A smile, faint but real, lifted her lips. Shame bug, she rasped. Then her gaze shifted, halting on the figure beside her daughter. Liam, dressed simply in a navy pullover and gray slacks, stood with one hand in his pocket and the other holding a small white orchid. He stepped forward and offered it. I'm Liam, he said gently. Your new son-in-law. Olivia blinked once. Then, to Jane's shock, she chuckled, a dry, tired sound, but genuine. Well, she whispered. He's handsome. Jane let out a breath that felt like she'd held it for days. She's doing better today. The nurse said quietly from the door, clearer than yesterday. Olivia's hand moved slowly toward the orchid. Liam gently placed it into her palm, helping her curl her fingers around the stem. I wanted to meet you, he said. Jane talks about you a lot. She paints, Olivia murmured. Her eyes moved toward Jane, since she was 4. She's good, Liam replied. I've seen her sketches. Olivia's gaze sharpened. You like her? Liam didn't blink. I do. Just getting to know her. But yes, I do. 8. Looked down, her throat tight. Good, Olivia breathed. No harm. Then she closed her eyes, the orchid still clasped in her hand. The nurse nodded. She gets tired fast. But that's the most she's spoken in 3 days. They stepped back as the nurse adjusted her oxygen and dimmed the lights. Outside in the corridor, Jane pressed her back to the wall. Liam stood beside her, arms folded. She liked you, Jane whispered. She's a good judge of character, Liam said softly. It runs in the family. Jane smiled small, unsure. That meant a lot. He looked at her. I can come. Again, if it helps, it might. They walked toward the elevators, quiet in step. That evening, Andre Coastal Estate Gloria stood waiting near the library doors as they returned. Where were you? Jane kept her voice calm. We went to visit my mother. Gloria's eyes narrowed. Without security, without clearance. She's dying, not dangerous, Liam cut in, stepping forward. And Jane doesn't need clearance to see her family. Gloria blinked, caught off guard. Of course, she said tightly. It's just unusual with the press, so curious. Now, they'll get nothing unless we give them something, he said coolly. And right now the truth is enough. He looked at Jane. I'm going to rest. When he was gone, Gloria turned sharply. He's testing limits. No, Jane replied. It's reclaiming them. Later that night, Jane sat alone on the back terrace, sketchbook in her lap. The waves below shimmered silver in the moonlight. Liam's steps crunched over the gravel. Behind her, can't sleep, he asked. Too much noise inside my head. He lowered himself into the chair beside her, one hand gingerly gripping the cane. She turned her sketchbook toward him, an unfinished line portrait of her mother, sleeping. With the orchid clutched to her chest, Liam touched the corner of the page. You captured her peace. I wish I could give her more than that. You already did. They sat quietly for a while, the ocean whispering below. Then Liam said, Tomorrow we meet the board. Publicly. Together. Jane turned. What do they expect? A charming couple. A recovery arc. Proof their plan worked. And what will we give them? Liam's mouth twitched into something between defiance and amusement. A story. But this time we'll be the ones writing it. The boardroom and the storm the Andre Tower gleamed. In the morning sun, glass and chrome like a blade thrust into the sky. Jane had never been inside before, though she'd passed it 1,000 times on the bus. Today she stood at its base beside Liam, cameras already clicking like locusts. He wore a tailored dark gray suit, leaner in frame than the last time he had donned it, but sharp as ever. Jane, in a soft blue blouse and a simple ivory blazer, clutched her sketchbook like a shield tucked in her handbag. We walk in together. No flinching. Liam murmured. Got it. And if anyone says something out of line, you don't answer. Let me. The glass doors parted. Inside, a private elevator whisked them to the 47th floor. The boardroom overlooked the bay, ships sliding across the horizon like slow thoughts. 12 chairs formed a crescent. At their head sat Whitaker, his face unreadable as ever. Beside him, the woman Jane remembered from the first meeting, Claudia. Andre tapped a pen against a legal pad. Welcome home, Mr. Andre, she said as they entered. Liam inclined his head. Only technically, it's not quite home yet. Jane sat when he did. She felt every eye measure her height, voice, worth, bloodline, ring. Claudia's eyes narrowed. And how's the transition, Mrs. Andre? Jane met her gaze evenly. Medical staff say recovery is promising. She means me, Liam said, voice dry. Of course. Claudia replied with a half smile. A younger man with slicked hair, Gregory Vale, spoke next. We're thrilled by your progress and the marriage. The optics are unexpected, but intriguing. I'm glad my near-death experience makes good headlines, Liam replied. Let's get to the point. Whitaker cleared his throat. There. Are matters of trust we'd like to review. Trust, Liam echoed. Interesting choice of word from people who arranged my marriage while I was unconscious. The room tensed. Claudia lifted a hand. It was a preservation act, Liam. Your shares were vulnerable. There were whispers of proxy attempts. We needed continuity. And Jane? He asked, leaning forward. Was she chosen for her steady hand? Or because she was desperate enough to sign? Jane said nothing. Her fingers dug into the armrest. She is family, Whitaker replied, and unentangled in corporate allegiances. That made her ideal. Ideal, Liam repeated. Then he smiled faintly. Let me be clear. I'm awake now. Decisions run through me. Of course, I'll attend future meetings. Starting today, Jane stays informed. Claudia raised a brow. She's not an executive. She's my wife. And if the marriage dissolves? Jane stiffened. It won't, Liam said calmly. But if it does, she walks with her full settlement and my support. That was part of the deal, wasn't it? Claudia didn't answer. Whitaker nodded once. Understood. Liam stood. Then we're done here. Jane rose too, her pulse thudding. Outside the boardroom, they stepped into the hallway. Silence stretching between them, Jane broke it. You didn't have to say all that. I did, Liam said. They need to know I'm not their puppet. And you're not disposable. Her throat tightened. Thank you. He looked at her for a moment. Then, quietly, you told me once you hated hospitals, but got used to them. I think I'm starting to understand what you meant. They rode the elevator down in silence, but something had shifted, less performance. More partnership. Later, that night Liam sat propped up in bed, sipping broth while Jane folded laundry across the room. The soft glow of the bedside lamp made the air feel warmer than usual. Ask, he said suddenly. She turned. Ask what? You've been waiting? You want to know about the crash? Jane set down the shirt in her hand. He exhaled, staring. At the blanket, it wasn't random. She moved closer. I had just left a shareholder dinner. There'd been shouting. One of the board members, Harlan, Drew threatened to move a block against me. Said I wasn't steady enough for legacy leadership. Okay? And you were driving angry. She asked gently. He shook his head. I wasn't driving. Silence. What? My brakes failed. It wasn't coincidence. And the car had been cleared that morning. No leaks, no alerts. Jane's blood chilled. You think someone? I don't think. I know. She sat down slowly. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I woke up in a stranger's house, married to someone I barely remembered, and my body felt like borrowed glass. I needed to know who I could trust. And now, she whispered. He looked at her. Now I think you're the only one who hasn't lied to me.